Okay, buenas tardes. Is it tardes? Yeah. So what is tardes? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Alvaro Huerta. I'm an associate professor here at Cal Poly Pomona, and we have a wonderful event with 3 artists that are going to talk about their artwork. They're going to go through their slides one by one, and then we're going to have a Q&A section with all of you. And we have our wonderful translators here that are part of CPP to be more inclusive to all audiences. So the first, well, I'll just read the artist and then we'll go one by one. Our first presenter is Joan Valadez, and I'm going to give a really brief bio, and when they come up, they can talk about how they grew up and things of that nature, so they can get paid. We're going to pay them in tacos, so just giving them an advance notice. So Joan Valadez is an artist who works in painting, pastel, murals, and photography. He was part of Los Cuatro. He has a BFA from Cal State University, Long Beach. Thereafter, we're going to have Salomon Huerta. He happens to be my brother. Coincidence that he's here and he's getting paid. Just don't tell the university. He's an artist who works in painting, lithographs, and other areas. He has a BFA from Art Center College of Design in Pasadena and a MFA from UCLA. And our final artist is Shizu Saldomando. If I mispronounce your name, let me know. Yeah, all night I was practicing. A mixed media artist in portraiture, drawing, and other areas. She has a BFA from UCLA. Go Bruins. Don't get jealous. Cal Poly, I'm with you guys too. And an MFA from California Institute of the Arts. That's Cal Arts, right? Okay. They should just say Cal Arts. Okay, take it away, Joan Valadez. Applause, everybody. Applause.
Hey guys. Oh, thank you. Wow. Nice.
Just speaking to the mic.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I'm Joan Valadez. Let's see. I'm a native of Los Angeles. I was born a long time ago. There were horses still on the street. I was very fortunate enough to want to become an artist when the whole Chicano movement started, which was a very interesting time. Let's see, there was the educational and justice inequalities and the whole Chicano thing. When I started, it's like, okay, so what does that mean? What does Chicano art mean? What does it look like? And I was in the first generation which was self-tasked to create work. And I always like to be a realist because I always was fascinated by how we all look and how we act with each other and the environment and the urban settings. Let me see. Let's see. Do I take? What do I hit?
You press this one right here.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Or maybe it's the other one. Oh, you pressed right there.
Okay, let's just do it manually. Next slide.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first slide was a good example of.
Let's go back to the first one, and then you just direct them. He'll tell you.
Okay. Yeah. Can you I was trying to get rid of this banner. You guys got to excuse this. We're not very tech savvy. At least I'm not. I don't want to accuse anyone. Regardless, the first image is a good example of when I had a studio in downtown LA, and the thing was to make art about people and situations of my environment that nobody in the art world really wanted to talk about. They actually didn't even want us to be artists. Like, because what are you becoming an artist for? I grew up in the post World War II generation where, because Americans won the war. Oh, thank you. Nobody has to describe themselves. They got into a sense of conceptual work, abstract expressionism, because it was the idea of we won, the world is free, and we have a freedom to do the kind of work that was how do you explain it? It was Well, it wasn't Chicano, and it wasn't social political work. That was to a lot of people passe. But to us, we as Chicanos, we were trying to describe who we were. You could switch it again. You could switch the thing. And this is from the urban environment. This guy, this is an oil painting. One of my first from 84, 86. And this, again, these are all mixed up. After a while, my painting, I started to have fun. Where this was the running of the bulls, but I put it on 6th Street Bridge, and there's a lowrider way in the back chasing them. So there's like a sense of humor in some of my later work. I didn't take myself so seriously. Okay, get the next one, and this one it makes me laugh. In the early times, I was an apartment manager, and I saw things, and this was inspired by me knocking on the door and telling people to turn it down, like people next door are complaining. And so when they opened the door, I saw stuff like, I go, man, I got to paint that. And that was my strategy about painting what I see in terms of humans. This is called Tony and Edie, The Guest is Leaving. Okay. So the next one, and this was pastel. Oh, okay. Yeah. They're like 38 by 50. This is a little bit larger. These are pastels, because in those years, as being Chicanos and showing and daring people to look at them, much less buy them, we had to really put our stuff out there a la brava, which means bravely, no consequences. And so this was called Gaviota. And the next one, I'm showing them. This is pool party. This is a good example of the early work in Los Angeles. The very interesting idea where, as long as I'm not being affected by the elements even next door, I'm safe, because there's a fire going on, but we have a pool. So if the worst things happen, you just jump in the pool. And the thing about there's a lot of messages in this. Whereas the dog needs to be washed, soaped up or rinsed off. And yet it's the pool that's getting the water, which for me it's about being an American. Okay. Like, we have a lot of things that we have. Things are needed, but I'm posing first. It's what's called pool party. And next one. And I try to get a little bit more elaborate. And again, this is my way of describing what I saw as being a Chicano. I had a studio in downtown Los Angeles for 15 years, from the don't get scared, the early 80s into the 90s. Okay, I don't know, you guys were even born yet. I don't know. I don't want to know. Okay, and so I saw these two guys walking down the street thinking it's summer, and I thought I was the only one with my shirt off, and that was, and then the vendors, they were trying to make it a very surreal, Baroque sort of urban statement. Okay, next one. You see how the work gets, it's kind of, I got to do some crazy work in those years. This is called Adam and Eva, double exposed. And it's based on old imagery, and it's also loosely inspired by the Malinche myth, which is an old Aztec. Guys, anybody know what the Malinche myth was? Oh, good. What the Malinche was, a woman supposedly. It was supposed to be true, mythological, and she was maligned because she was the first one that was with Hernan Cortez, the conqueror of Mexico, and she was his concubine, and she had the first mestizo. A mestizo is indigenous person and a European, and they have a baby, and it's, that is a mixed race. And supposedly she had one of the first ones from Cortez. For a while, she was considered a traitor, and then they realized that no, she was a victim. And the Malinche myth is this little figure here, this little image here, right here, that's like Cortez, and that's the indigenous. And then it's based, and there's also Adam and Eve from Albert Durer. And the whole drama, it's almost like a soap opera. And I wanted to provoke people with the images of a very young girl and a very old, Anglo man his intentions are shady. And so that's this one. It was shown in a show recently that closed of the Malinche. It's a very interesting theme. Okay, the next one. This is Imamu. Imamwa. It's a Haitian voodoo word of a spirit from the ocean. And it was my challenge to do a portrait without the face, where you use the body. There's scars and tattoos, a little bit of tattoos. Instead of coral, there's trash. Again, it's very urban, the way my mind works. Okay, next. Again, those are pastels. This is this one. What is this called? Oh man, I don't know. But there's some kind of drama going on. Obviously, I forget the name of it. Man, it's been a while. Oh, it's called bola, which means ball. And that the man is, who knows what the story is. Again, it's based on Mexican photonovelas, the old soap opera stuff. And again, it's for you to look at it and say, what the hell's going on? And that's the idea. I don't really, the work doesn't really have one meaning. The meanings come from you if you're looking at it. And these pieces, you have to go to a gallery to see them. It isn't, I'm getting carried away. It's not public art, and it's not, it's gallery work. Then the next one, and this is from, you see how I do these couples and different setups. This is from the car shows, where I used to go to the car shows in the mid to late 90s into early 2000. And so I got more interested in the people than the cars, because the interaction, because this is like the post-AIDS. From my generation, AIDS was like, sex was death, something like that. But people were still flirting because you have to. And so this one's called dulces. It's called sweets. And you don't know which one is the sweets. And the idea is also, it's not just the figures in the front, it's what's happening around around the other figures in the background. And it's a pastel. I don't know, the 90s. Okay, next. Okay, again, this is from the car show series. It's a very large painting. And you see how the figures are in front of the cars. People are much more, even though I like cars, they're much more interesting, our drama, how we hold ourselves, how we dress, what we're doing, there's a lot of sexual tension in some of these places. Okay, the next one. And these are like the one you just saw, the other, some of them are like life size, but these are a little bit smaller. It's like 38. It's like 38 by 50. These are 2 sheets of paper to make this piece. It's called Chevy Twins, because there's 2 Chevys. They're not quite twins. And then the girls, they're not quite twins. So that's why I call it Chevy Twins. It's like puns. Okay, next. It's funny, I'm sorry that I see my work and I love myself. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But these figures were from a car show drama, but I put them in the ocean because I got tired of drawing cars. I've been doing work since I got out of the university about 1975, and I've been, painting ever since. And so this is called Low Tide, and this is about desire from, guys that dream on. Okay, so that's what that's about. Okay, the next one. This is my downtown series. This is a pastel. And it's when downtown it was in the 80s. Things were getting a little rough in the evening. Like I say, I had a studio in downtown for 15 years. And so I used to go out at night, I would photograph, and I would recompose, the composition. My strategy was to get information using photography and create my own cinematic moments. It's almost like I'm a frustrated cinematographer. So I would do this kind of, you would see one side and then visually walk over to the other side to create this. Okay, next. I did a few of these. Here's another one. This one's called Holidays. It's pastel. I really wanted to make it like beautiful, but when you look into it, there's a lot of like drama going on. And Holidays was about Christmas, Chinese New Year, and the 4th of July in Europe, in New York, and in Los Angeles. So it was like a composition. Okay, next. This is a much more recent piece. And it was, let's see, this one I was honored to be in Bordeaux, France. I was asked to do a mural for a Chicano show in Bordeaux. It was in 2008, I think it was. And so, and the next slide, you'll see it installed in front of the museum there. The museum is like the history museum in that area of France. It was a sister city, and the Chicano show was in that building there. It was great. It was six weeks. Okay, next.
5 minutes.
Okay, this is when I came back. I was inspired to do this one from the cars, ocean, and there's some drama in the clouds. And so I'll go until my time is up. So let's see. The idea is to create a work that describes us, and I do it in my own very unique way. Next, let's see what else we got. Again, the ocean was very important because we live in LA. The ocean is one of the characters in my work. The idea of these is like the beautiful sunset. I mean, the beautiful ocean, the landscape, and yet humans have drama. There's something. How'd the car end up in the water, and why are those people taunting them instead of trying to help them? Very LA thing, you know. Okay, next. This is a little bit more overtly political. She's in a limousine, which is based on the JFK assassination, and the angry, Anglos in the back, which is very current. This is a few years ago, and the cloud is like, it's where's the country going? There's a lot of tension. There's a cancer of the spirit, and this is about as political. And I try to make it symbolic, metaphors. Okay, next. We'll go until it's over. This is on the streets. I love this piece because it's people walking and nobody giving way. I try to make it as beautiful as I can as a painting. So like you want to look at it and then and if you look at it, like what's going on? Okay, next, until they tell me to get off the stage. And this is again a car show piece. I made it very surrealistic. This is called Anime. Piernas Anime, that's what it is, from the car shows. Okay, and the next one, this is, taking a lowrider and wishing I was in Spain, I guess. I don't know. It's just a fun piece for you, again, to look at what's going on. Okay, next one. Again, the ocean, and very a Mexican romantic. The woman is, who knows what's going on. Is she sad? She fed up? Does she just, does she love the ocean? Again, it's like romance and theater. Which comes from, Mexican stuff and American film. Okay, next. Let me know when I'm ready. Oh, yeah, and then this is using some of the imagery, the photo novellas in Mexico, and then I would paint an image on top of it using the same colors. I thought it was genius myself. I have a few of these. They're really fun to do. Okay, next. And this is a pastel from the early times, like that first guy, the black guy, and this woman. That's what I would ask people to pose for me. I go back into my studio and try to capture their spirit, not just reproduce a photograph, but to get to them in terms of where they were when I saw them, and I wanted to draw them. Okay, I think, is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. See, I did it.
All right.
All right, you guys.
Applause, everybody.
Yeah, don't force them to applause.
That's how I get paid, by the applause. Okay, so that was fantastic with thank you, John Valadez. The other two artists are going to show fewer slides. And so they're going to talk about his. So what I'm going to do is, like, during their presentation is about like close to 20 minutes. I'll be asking them questions. And then when they're done, and then I'll ask John some questions, so that in terms of the few minutes we have, we're going to go until like around 5:15 or so. If anybody wants to stick around after, just let me know. We can ask them more direct questions. So the next artist is Salomon Huerta. Take it away.
How's it going? Can you put the first image? This body that I'm going to show you is like recent work that I'm going to show at the Hamptons in May 27th. If you want to see like, what do you call it? Like older work, then you can just Google me or go on my Instagram account. I was born in Tijuana and raised in the Hazard Projects in Ramona Gardens. And from there, I went to like Art Center College of Design. And when I was going there, it was pretty crazy, because many times I would leave my house and I had to deal with the drug dealers just to get to my car to get to school. And then when I went on the way to school, many times I would almost hit like a deer, because there was a lot of deers coming from the mountains, into the campus. So it was that kind of contrast, and no one knew that I was in the projects, or that I didn't have money. Everyone thought that I was like them, but I literally did it in the first year and a half before I got a scholarship. I did it on $1 a day. I would go into the cafeteria and I would order some rice, but I would have the guy fill up the bowl with carne asada and then cover it with rice, so that I can, have my protein. But I literally did it on one meal a day on that campus, So after going to Art Center, I decided to do a body of work that was like more universal. So I went into UCLA to get my master's. This body of work is focusing on neighbors from my neighborhood and the Hazard Projects. And a lot of these photos I took in the 90s. And all these paintings are done oil on canvas. There's really like no titles to them. I mean, the gallery kind of forced me to put a name to each painting, but to the majority of the images, I forgot the people's name, but I happened to have the photos, and I chose the photos that I was happy with to make these paintings. Next. Okay, I'll wait for the next image, but that's the same model, but more like in the distance. And a lot of these images I took at the cemetery at funerals, and I removed the plaques and I tried to make it look like they were at the park. Growing up in the projects was like a hyper reality based on on violence, like one night from school, I got home at around 3 a.m, and I'm going into the parking lot of where I live, and before I'm parking the car, I'm like looking around to see if there's anyone around, and I noticed, everything was clear. So I get out of my car, and by the corner of my eye, I see a dark shadow running towards me. And by the time I turn around, like in slow motion, there was a gun pointing at my head. So I was very calm, and I looked at the guy. I gave him eye contact, and he looked at me very carefully. And then he goes, "Oh, sorry, bro. I thought you were someone else." And then he took off running. But that was the constant kind of excuse my language, but bullshit that I had to deal with on a daily basis while trying to go to school and do the best that I can do. Next. This is my brother's friend, also a friend of mine. His name is, what's his real name? Grumpy? Well, I forgot his real name, but we call him Gilbert, and he goes by Grumpy, and that's his girlfriend. And this photo was taken in 1992 after a funeral. Next. And this is his other brother, Hector. He goes by Happy. So Grumpy and Happy, the twins. And when I'm making these paintings, I'm not trying to glorify gangs or anything like that. I'm just, for me, it's about kind of making peace from that period of time in my life. And I choose the best moments from that time, and I make paintings from that. And the majority of the time I do these paintings for myself, because they're very challenging to sell, and not that many galleries are open to want to exhibit them. But I'm very fortunate that the gallery I have now, that's based in LA, New York, wants to exhibit them. And like I said, I'm going to have a show on May 27 at the Hamptons, so I'm looking forward to that experience. Next. So a lot of these paintings are done in one day. It literally takes me from 2.5 hours to 3.5 hours. And I try to make them in one setting so that they look kind of a little bit raw and fluid, the way the paint is applied on the canvas, The problem with that when I'm working one setting is that sometimes I find out a week later that I don't like the painting. So then I'm not able to go back into it. So I destroy it and start over. Next. So once again, this one is at the funeral. I just removed the plaques. When I was working on this show, they gave me a really tight deadline, and I was literally doing a painting a day. And because I was working so intense, I developed in 10 days. I developed on carpal tunnel, so my hand, it would stay like this, in the painting position. It wouldn't go back, and then my hand was numb. Then it would start to hurt. So I had to do one more painting, and there was no time to stop. So I got taped the brush to my hand. And then I continued painting. And then the gallery called me and said, "Oh, we're going to extend the deadline to 3 months later." And then I just stopped painting for a couple of months to let my hand heal and go at it again. Next. So this guy's name is Chino. Once again, he's my brother's friend. And it took me because the early work that I did was very realistic and rendered, and it took me a long time to kind of loosen up and not kind of be so perfect in the terms of the way it was presented. I had to look at a lot of work, a lot of contemporary artists, and also a lot of the masters that I like in order to develop a style that I was happy with. So like this painting is like 16 by 14, is oil on canvas over panel. And I work off photographs, but I always tweak the photographs, you know, to something that I like. So this one took me like about 2 hours to paint. Next. This guy's name is Raul, and he goes by Snipes. He was my neighbor, like literally across, like maybe 40 feet away from my house. And it's a painting of a Polaroid while he was in jail. So a lot of these Polaroids, they pay the guards to take the photos. You can literally go on eBay or you can Google like prison Polaroids, and they're for sale. People sell their Polaroids of being in prison, you know. So his brother George gave me the photo, and I did this painting of that. Next. That's it. Did I go too fast? How much time do I have left? Like 10 minutes?
Oh, no, you didn't go too fast.
Not enough images.
No, it's okay. No, let me
Go back to one image. So this way, there's not a blank. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and then we'll go to our next brilliant artist. We have 3 amazing artists. And if anybody wants to buy any work, let me know on the side. I can, you know, just get Venmo or cash, EBT too. So Salomon, can you talk to us a little bit about like how is it that and I'll probably ask the same questions. How did you first become influenced in art? And before that, like what were you interested in pursuing? I know you used to play basketball, but what were some of your interests before art, and how did you get into art?
You know, because of the constant kind of like trauma that was happening in the projects, I was never a good student. Like I couldn't focus. I couldn't really retain information. So I was always good at art, but I chose art because that was the only thing I can do, and I didn't feel confident with anything else. But I was delaying being an artist. So before I was an artist, I was a DJ. Well, before that, I played basketball, and I really thought I was going to make it to college. And then I got a taste of that experience that, you know, people were faster and taller than me. So I realized that that's not going to happen. Then I became a DJ, and being a DJ, I saw my limitations. I saw that I wasn't as good as the main guys. I had like limitations. So I got pretty kind of depressed about that. And I chose art as the last kind of like, wow, let me try this. And I was inspired. I was always doing art, and I was inspired by the murals and the projects by like the alley streetscapers like Wayne Haley and David Poteo. And I also got inspired by John right here, John Valadez. And so like I did it as like, okay, let me give it a shot. But I went into the field of illustration. And even then in illustration, I saw my limitations, that I wasn't that good compared to the people that were in my class, until I started doing my own personal work. And then I realized that I didn't see no limitations there. I saw that I can evolve, and I was very comfortable with all mediums. You know, I was comfortable with drawing with pencil. I was comfortable with watercolors, mixed media. I was comfortable with acrylic. I was comfortable with oil. So then I said to myself, it's just a matter of how much time I put in to how good I want to be. And that's kind of how I chose to be an artist.
Can you talk to us a little bit? I know your experience, because you attended Pasadena City College, just the transfer process, and how is it that over the years you've been able to be successful in art?
Yeah, when I went to when I was at Lincoln High School and was in high school, I don't know how I graduated because I didn't learn shit. I have, when people tell me they failed, I don't know how they failed. My thing is that I just showed up. I was never tardy, never absent, and I would always smile, and they would just pass me to the next class. But I didn't learn anything. And then when I got to City College, I don't even know why I went to college because I wasn't prepared. But I learned how to cheat in order to get by the classes, And excuse me. But I was good at art, so I would just focus in the art on the side. I'm sorry. I forgot the rest of the question.
Well, how is it that you've been able to be successful in a very competitive field like art over the years?
I like healthy competition. I like to compete with who's out there, and and I really put in the time. When I was in art center, I was competing with my classmates, and I would do all-nighters, and I was, like I said, I was never absent, never tardy. I really believe in going beyond 100%, because all I think about is art. That's all I think about. The people that I spend time with, the people that I have lunch with and dinner. It's like I'm either talking to curators, art consultants, writers, artists, but even with my girlfriend, that's all we do. We go to dinners with artists, we go to art openings, or we travel and we go look at art museums. So I love this field because it has no age limits. And if you're doing something that no one wants to buy, then you have the opportunity to do something different. And I like that. And I'm inspired. I'm inspired by good art because it makes me work harder. And I'm also motivated by bad art because when I see bad art in the gallery, say if that art is there, then I can show the art I'm doing now. So either way is good. So I think my success has come because I just go the extra step,
Gracias. Thank
That's
you.
it.
So two amazing artists and another amazing artist. Shizu is going to show her work, and I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll go back to John, or maybe open it up for others to ask questions in the chat, or our wonderful students here that I know are amazed by this artwork.
Hi, my name is Shizu Saldamando. I'm from San Francisco, but I got into UCLA for undergrad, and then I just stayed in LA. So I'm starting to show you work that I did in my grad school when I was in Cal Arts. So Sala was actually a grad student at UCLA when I was an undergrad, and it was not very diverse at all. I think there was 3 or 4 Chicano Latinx artists in the undergrad program. And I had come from the Mission District in San Francisco, which was a predominantly Central American neighborhood in San Francisco. And we were really influenced by Chicano art in terms of Teen Angel magazines, which was a Cholo art magazine that had a lot of prison art. And we used to copy ballpoint pen drawings. So me and my friends used to try to copy this technique of really detailed ballpoint pen drawing. And so when I was at Cal Arts, I did these baño drawings, the prison art. I would try to copy them, and I did portraits of my friends. And I showed these at Cal Arts, and I got these really weird responses from the professors and teachers because Cal Arts was even less diverse than UCLA was in the art department. And so it was very kind of alienating to exist there, and nobody knew what references you had. They had no idea what Teen Angel magazine was. They had no idea who John Valadez was. They had no idea who Salomon Huerta was. And these were really big influences on my practice. Well, actually, they probably didn't know who you are because you taught there for a second. But anyways, so I was getting accused of creating this weird binary of a brown Latinx representation on the walls of people, and this disconnect between a white audience of my classmates at Cal Arts, and therefore my work was being problematic, and I needed to cater. I needed to be more conceptual with my work to be more accessible towards white audiences, and this was like, it was pretty like weird to go through. But also because there wasn't a lot of people I could talk to about that. And I was coming out of working at Self-Help Graphics and Art in East LA, which is a Chicano Latino art center in East LA. And I had always, even in the Mission District in San Francisco, had gone to Chicano Latino art centers. And that's how I learned about art. And that's where I was influenced. So it wasn't only white people that had cultural cachet and made art. For me, brown people were making art too, and showing art. And so for my thesis show, I did this sort of institutional critique of going to different Chicano art shows and asking people to pose for me like they're looking like I'm a piece of art. And I wanted to create a reflexive relationship between the gallery goer and the subject in the piece. So this was a portrait of my friend Arturo Romo. No, Arturo. Do you remember Arturo's last name? Yeah, we were in the Phantom Sighting show at LACMA together. And I was at this Chicano art show and I asked him, Arturo, can you just look at me like you're looking at a piece of art? And so this was my thesis show where I took pictures of people and drew them. So this is a ballpoint pen drawing on canvas. It's larger than life. I guess it's larger than this screen, but so Arturo's actually larger than he is in real life. To create this reflexive relationship with the students at Cal Arts that would go through and see it, and to question who makes art and for whom, and the politics surrounding it. So next slide. So I was really bored of making art about art and creating work about the institution, art about art, and it wasn't bringing me joy. I'd always really liked to do portraits and celebration and in honor of people. So I decided to start doing, instead of working on canvas, which had this weight of art history and the fine art, kind of like Western art school, I decided to draw ballpoint pen on bed sheets. So I was going clubbing a lot. Like I would go to goth clubs, queer clubs. This one's Ripples in Long Beach. And I did portraits of people embracing, and this was called the Embrace series. And these were ballpoint pen on bed sheets instead of canvas or baños. So the reference became more domestic and more intimate. And so this one is actually like a detail, but it's actually a really large bed sheet. You can see the next slide. And so they're installed like a laundry line when I show them in the gallery. And it just was harkening back to what I originally like about creating artwork, is like as a celebration or an homage piece for somebody that I love, or something that makes me happy. And also just to honor different subcultures in the club scene in LA. This is like the early 2000s that I did this work. The next slide. This is another one on a bed sheet. Next slide. So also I only have like a few slides because I was told that we could only bring 5, but so this one is oil paint on wood, a wood panel. And this is a portrait of my friend Amelia Cruz, who's an amazing painter. And I use a lot of different mediums, not just standard oil paint, but I like this one. I started to let the wood grain come through the image so you can see it. So she's kind of like see-through and the wood grain comes through, and it became more about craft for me, and the different materials such as the collage paper, and there's like vintage glitter on there, glass glitter and metal leaf. And I kind of view it as more as a craft reference, a more feminist reference, rather than this trying to insert myself in this really loaded art historical weight of painting and oil painting. And I wanted to get away from that and make it more domestic and more crafty, and honoring the different contexts of creativity, not just in like a high art, like canvas painting, but also in collage and in assemblage and in glitter. And so this is a portrait of Emilia, who's an amazing oil painter herself. They did all the work for the show Hentify that was on Netflix. I don't know if you guys ever saw that one, but that's her work. So you can do the next slide. This is a portrait of Pomona native Mina, who I work with at I tattoo also as a day job, so I don't have to rely on sales where I could just make what I want and not have to change it to try to sell it. So she works in the same tattoo studio with me, and her dad is Antonio Mejia, and they're over in Pomona on 2nd Street in the Arts District. And this was a portrait of her sitting on the bench in front of the tattoo studio. And this is metal leaf and collage and glitter and spray paint. And Mina has a Nausea shirt on, which is like a female-fronted punk band. And Mina's style is incredible. And again, I'm letting the wood grain come through in a way to kind of like talk about subjectivity in a very non-fixed way, but in an ephemeral way, and also to honor the different subcultures that we all inhabit and that are often overlooked, but are a way for us to thrive and find connection outside of mainstream circles and outside of institutional contexts. Because I get really annoyed when all my friends are just artists and I go to art stuff. Like I have to go to like different stuff too. Okay, I think that's it. Is that it? Oh no! Oh yeah, and this is a portrait of Salomon. So Salomon has Salomon and John Valadez have always been like really big influences on me ever since I was like like a teenager, I guess, growing up in the Mission, seeing all their work through self-help graphic or Galleria, which is a Chicano Art Center in the Mission District, had work by John Valadez and the work from a lot of the artists that went through self-help graphics. I know Salomon worked through self-help graphics too. So going to UCLA and then him being a grad student, he would always kind of look out for us and bring us to different grad student art speakers. And are just like a really cool, decent person on campus. And so we were here at Patrick Martinez's baby shower, and he was sitting on this like homemade bench with a sarape on it. And I did that with collage. And so thanks for letting me paint you, Salomon. So, and it's really great to be in this context, to be able to present my work with like two really big influences on my own work. So thanks. I think that's it. Is that it? Oh, okay. This is, sorry, I got more than I thought. This is a portrait of Sebastian Hernandez, who's identifies as trans and is an amazing dancer and a choreographer and performance artist. And I took this photo of them after I tattooed them, but you can't see it here, it's on their neck. But yeah, and then I think LACMA bought this one after, and this is colored pencil and paper, but the leaves, the palm leaves are done in collage paper as well. And this was done I took this photo outside of the tattoo studio also. So is that all? Is there more? Oh, okay. And this is a portrait of my friend Waylon. This was David Bowie night. And again, hearkening back to like goth club days. I'm 45. I don't go out that much anymore because I have a baby and a kid. So we got to go to like David Bowie night, and there was really great lighting. And Waylon let me take their photo and paint it. And they're from Pico Aliso projects, not too far from Ramona. But I think that's the last one. Again with the wood grain. And oh, okay. Yeah, so this is Mercy, who's Suki Lolita on Instagram, and they're like just one of my friends, and we were in Palm Springs, and it was their opening. So Gabriela Ruiz had an opening with a bunch of other friends, and she was like there looking all 90s, looking all early 2000s. So I was like, oh yeah, I gotta take your look. And then I did gold leaf tribal behind her. Okay, I think that's the last one. All right, thank you. Is there any questions?
Well, let me just ask a question or two, and then when I ask John the same question, then we'll open it up. We have about 50 minutes. So just like I'll ask you a similar question to Salomon. How did you get into art? How did you get into art in terms of?
Oh, where did I start?
Like when you were a kid or
well, so when I was little, I would go to work with my mom, and I would draw in a corner because she worked at an office. So, oh God, that's okay. So, she worked in an office, so I would draw in the corner. So then when I finally was ready for like school, like kindergarten, I had like better eye coordination than a lot of my like classmates. So I could like color in the lines. So the teacher held up my like like, oh, look at Shizu, she can color in the lines. And there's like a meme, like all artists kind of like chasing that high ever since, so that like you can draw good. So you try to do that. And so I just kept taking art classes. If there was an elective, I would take art. I was the only way I got into UCLA was because I got into the art program. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met the minimum requirements, but I got into the art school. So I got to go to UCLA. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have gone there. Yeah. And then I just stayed. And then I worked at Self-Help Graphics during the summers and as a work study student. And then I was a really bad office person working there. So I decided to go to grad school. And then I got into CalArts through my video work that I've done. And then I was working for other artists and being really miserable in the art world. And it's how insular and everybody's so anxiety ridden and it's so like racist and it's so classist. And I was like, how am I going to deal with this? So I was like, I'm going to tattoo. So I went back and I started apprenticing tattooing at a shop in East LA. And that kind of like saved my life because it really connected me to people that I really liked, like old friends. And I was able to have this really cathartic experience of intimate exchange with people, creating more trauma, but releasing trauma by tattooing. And then all of a sudden more and more curators and museums were like interested, like, oh, she tattoos and she does art. That's so interesting. Let's put her on and give her a KCET art bound thing. And then my artwork started getting more popular because of that. And I think like now back when I graduated school, there wasn't this climate of like social media where people saw the actual brown people or Chicano people outside of like say Grand Theft Auto. And so now that people are like realizing that there's a whole other culture of artists and communities out there, it's okay to do culturally specific work. It's okay to have representations of your culture in your artwork. Whereas before, to exist in mainstream art institutions, you were told you can't, you have to be more conceptual. Like Salo was strategized on that too, right? Like he did paintings of just houses and backs of heads just to strategize a way to make your work palatable or consumable by white mainstream audiences. And my work was never seen like that. I never did that. And so now I feel like the climate is like changing and people are being like, hey, like we're a museum in LA or we're a gallery in LA and we have no Latino artists on our whole roster and we're in freaking Los Angeles. And people are being called out on that. And I think it's slowly changing little by little that the more Latinx and Chicano artists are being put on, but it's taken a while. And I know like for John too, like when you were coming up in the 80s, there was a whole Chicano art movement and people were being shown in galleries and then it was like, it was like the fad had died or something and nobody was getting shown anymore. And that's when, yeah. So it's like these fads and these things in the art world kind of like go through like, but I hope now that people see that Chicano art or like Latinx art is not just a fad. Like it's like actual people's cultural heritage and love. And it's just as valid and just as important, than this invisible era of umbrella of whiteness that we all kind of have to navigate through and take for granted when it's actually very specific culturally too. Okay.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question online.
Oh yeah.
Okay, applause everybody before the question. Applause. Okay, that's like a B plus applause. Applause everybody. Okay, A for everybody. Okay, can you answer it over here in the?
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, Chris will ask the question.
Sure.
But in ask them like,
Oh, yes.
Okay, this question was asked anonymously. What inspired you to portray queer art people in your art?
Well, because I used to go to just dance clubs all the time, and then identifying as queer, as in like the bell hooks, like even though I have a husband and a child, I view queerness as existing outside of patriarchal heteronormative value systems that are really repressive and just kind of like want to stifle everybody. I think it's all related, like gender, ethnic, cultural identities. It's all related the way that racism, it's all intertwined, but also going to different dance clubs and just going to goth clubs or anything. There's always a strong, and also being into punk music. There's just like so many of my friends who are all queer and all identifying of all different backgrounds and gender fluid identities, and it would be a detriment. It would be almost really fucked up of me not to portray them and not to portray my friends, because that's my community and my friends. And so if I excluded that, it would just been dishonest, I feel like. Okay. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. One second. Hello? Can you hear me? Is it working? Okay, go ahead and use the mic. And announce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Daniel. I'm a student journalist for the Publico.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah. First of all, like I think your art is pretty good. I liked all the detail and love you put into it.
Thank you.
So my question for you is, what is the importance of representing different cultures and communities through art?
What is important? I'm not like strategically trying to be inclusive in my art. It's just a reflection of what world I inhabit. So I kind of view my work as a biographical, indexical study, I guess. It's like, I went here, so this is where I saw Mina. I took her picture. I was at this art show and Mercy was there looking fly as fuck. Let me take her photo and paint it. Like it's just kind of like an indexical like reflection of how I exist. And I'm not like strategically like, oh, I need to include this type of person. Let me go there and do that. It's more just like by happenstance of where I am at the moment. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. This is a bilingual conversation. Gracias. Okay, another question. She's taking over. Take over these men. Go ahead. Chris.
Okay, this question is from Daniel Jacks, who says, how important is it right now as an artist to showcase such strong queer art in our political climate?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I've always been doing this since like undergrad. But especially now there's so much legislation, people wanting to just like commit genocide against entire groups of people, gender fluid people, and try to claim that they don't exist, and deny people's own identities. It's so messed up. And I hope people can see the parallel between racial genocide and between what's going on and how people's lives are at stake. It's horrifying. So yeah, I feel like it's always been important, and it will always be important regardless of legislation, to honor people and to honor people's different ways they want to identify. And it's just a way to kind of like subvert or go against fascism because of what we're in right now. And it's always going to be important no matter what. Yeah.
Any questions? Any other questions for John Salomon? Okay, John, why don't you take the mic and why don't you just talk to us a little bit about yourself? I think you grew up in Bow Heights, right?
Yeah.
Or in LA. And then talk a little bit about, how was it like as a kid or high school, what have you, like that you got into art, or where did that start from?
It started when I was in grammar school, and I did a reproduction. I don't know, third grade. I don't know, fourth grade. I did a reproduction of The Rage in Those was Fred Flintstone. So I did a drawing of him as exact as I could. Took it to school, and nobody believed that I did it. A lot of my friends, you didn't do that, man. You didn't do that. You didn't do that. So I was like, wow, when people think that I'm somehow lying, I don't know what happened. So that affected me. And so I always wanted to draw. And it helped with the defiance. I was also a stutterer. I know this is not therapy, but there was a lot of stuff that made me an introvert, luckily. So I was used to being pretty much alone, looking at, the circus of the world, which was Boyle Heights. My mother, she was a single mother with my brother and myself. And we grew up in the projects, Estrada Courts. Then we moved across the street to Wyvernwood, which was mostly predominantly Anglo. And it was post-World War II veterans that had families. So we grew up around that. My mother was 16 when I was born. So we grew up post-World War II, but I was born to a teenage struggling woman, very, very strong. And so from there, I always liked science and history. I couldn't do the math. Algebra just kicked my butt. So I said, well, the other thing that I always liked art, and I liked reading. And so I decided the next thing about exploring the way science was and the way history was, it triggered the imagination. So I went into art, and I had some very good teachers when I was in high school. And then I just started to do that. And I liked what someone said, where in art, the only place that I got A's, I could draw, like, wow. And then my ideas were a little off the wall. They've always been a little off the wall, but it's also being honest and true about what I see, a particular vision. I didn't nurture it. I just went with it. And so that's how. It's just basically from when I was a kid and being rejected, which is pretty much the standard a lot of us go through. And I was used to just being alone, and an artist needs to be alone. And so you can focus on what you're doing and your work. Yeah.
Well, I'm a collector, a collector of one. Every time Salomon wants to get rid of a painting, I just take it from him before he tears it up.
It's good.
And luckily, I collected two of yours when you did those lithographs. And
Oh, wow.
the next on my list is Shizu silk screens. Yeah,
Oh,
the one,
from Self-Help?
the Rigo, the ones that were selling.
Oh, yeah, those.
So
yeah,
I got two of those. Those are
Oh, cool. Yeah.
those were cool images. So one thing that I see, those collectors, they think they're curators and they didn't go to school for it. So I'm one of those art critics. Your art. So one thing that I see from all of you, which I admire all of the work, is that the subjects that all of you select are considered like what society refers to as like the outcasts. Like for us, like my brother and I, this is like therapy too for us, is we're like from the projects, we're like from the other side of the tracks, right? So we wouldn't even tell people sometimes because they would think we would steal. And after a while, we started stealing because they thought we were stealing. Might as well get something out of it. So how is it that in your case, you decided to paint these individuals that are considered like the outcasts from mainstream society, but at the same time do it in such a beautiful way that it attracts people to view it?
Well, that was the strategy in the beginning of my concepts of what Chicano art was. It was subversive in nature. You don't really realize it as you're doing it. And in the beginning, you realize it later, like how people are reacting to your work. And my thing was in the subversive nature, was to learn Western European realist techniques and to do imagery of people that I want to look at. And to do it bigger than life size, because I was influenced from the murals that we were doing. Because the murals in those years, we're talking 70s into the 80s. Murals were the answer to graffiti. So I was used to doing large scale. And the thing about murals were the answer to graffiti. Now graffiti are murals. So if you live long enough, that's what happens. And so I was really unapologetic because there was nothing to lose. I didn't have anything anyway. Failure I'm already considered a failure, even though I knew I wasn't. And a lot of my friends, we aren't. That the Los Four experience, I was Los Four number 6. There were the 4 original guys, and they were like 10 years older. They were another generation. So I used to take heart that there were older Chicanos that were artists, and they're making a living as teaching. And with the Los Four, when they got the museum, that was like, if you stick with what you're doing, things will happen. You're not going to become the Rolling Stones or anything, but you can survive. And there's and you just follow what you do and ignore the chatter. Don't look back. Just look at what you're doing and find friends that nurture each other. Sure, there's competition, you know. There are some, you know, idiots, and they fall to the wayside. But there's people that to this day, I'm in my early 70s, believe it or not. See, I look good. Yeah, I'm not starving, you know, all that. And I have grandkids. I have a very blessed life because I just followed what I wanted to do. From school, you follow whatever you want to try and keep the chatter away. Try to stay positive and go for it. You got to go just what Solomon says. You got to go 150%. I know it sounds like I'm, you know, doing a, what is it? What do they call that? See, that's what happens when you get old. Like I'm trying to, like, you know, urge you people on. Yes, motivational speaking, but that's what I did to myself when I was when I had no money in the 80s, the early 80s. Oranges and beans is what my daughter called it, the oranges and beans era. I just worked. I had a studio, hardly any money. And I said, do I get a job or do I finish that drawing? And I says, you know, I'm gonna finish the drawing. Because you gotta be in art, I think you gotta be a little, at least I did. I had to be a little crazy, a little irrational, a little bit like, I'm gonna keep going. You gotta keep going because you gotta get better at what you do. And I forgot your question.
You answered it.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Question, how you look so good at 50?
50, yeah. You should have seen me at 50. Man, okay, anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
Gracias, John.
Yeah, man.
Okay, everybody, applause, everybody. We need some applause in the Zoom. Thank you very much. 3 amazing artists, and more than amazing artists, 3 amazing human beings. They came all the way to our university. They're here with us. They have to leave shortly because of the parking and the Nazi parking permit. People are looking after our cars. So on a positive note, these individuals are very inspirational, and I hope all of you that were here present can learn from them. Y'all have to go for it. You know, follow your dreams. Don't listen to your parents unless they're paying for your college. If they're getting away of your dreams, do what you want to do, not what others want you to do. Muchas gracias. Thank you for the translators, for Media Vision, the library. I feel like a Coke commercial. Thank you for Pepsi. Chris, Justin, Marilu, Dean Hawthorne of the University Library for allowing us to be here. And once again, thank you for the best moderator in the history of the United States, Dr. Alvaro Huerta. Goodbye.